When you think of big business in Asia, escalators and lifts don't often spring to mind. But people moving is worth billions of dollars. ThyssenKrupp Elevator is one of the main global players, and the CEO in Asia is Australian Peter Walker. He started as an apprentice, but now oversees the largest growth market in the company's global operations, with 500,000 lifts installed in China every year. Peter Walker, thank you very much for joining the program. Now, you've been the CEO of ThyssenKrupp Elevator for 10 years in the Asia-Pacific region. What's an Australian doing running a German company in Asia?
It's a relatively long story, but I was the CEO of ThyssenKrupp in Australia about 10 years ago, and ThyssenKrupp decided to regionalise the world into 4 regions, geographical reasons. We had very little focus on Asia at the time. I had the opportunity then to take the job in Asia, so probably without much thought, I accepted the job and came up and started in Shanghai about 10 years ago.
Escalators and lifts are big business, particularly in this region. What was the company's turnover last year?
ThyssenKrupp globally is a 50 billion equivalent Australian dollar company. So if you looked at that level, it would equate to the biggest companies in Australia on turnover. Headcount, we're about 150, 160,000 employees. So it's a very large corporation. In respect to the elevator side, around 8 billion Australian dollar turnover, and we make up about 25% of that in Asia. Again, on a headcount level, we've got around 13,000 employees in Asia.
Given the urban density of places like Hong Kong and parts of Asia, how big a market is this region?
Asia at the moment would be the biggest market in the world, and that would be larger than all the other markets put together. So to put into perspective, there's around 500,000 elevators a year installed in China, and if you compare that to a place like Australia, there's around 2,000 elevators. So if you scale it on that level, it's unbelievable. But again, Australia's part of Asia for us. So if you then compare Asia to the rest of the world, there would be less than 200,000 or 300,000 elevators in the rest of the world. So it's monumental how large it is at the moment.
And who are the emerging markets in this region? India?
Well, India's starting, but again, this parallel between India and China, it's very hard to compare the two directly because of history and so forth. But India's starting. It starts and stops. We still have a huge amount of hope for it, particularly with the current government in place. But it still would probably be around 1/10 of the size of China as a comparative.
We're not just talking buildings, we're also talking airports, MTRs and railway stations. Tell us about the largest project that the company's been involved in this region.
It's a nice question because it's an area that we feel that we have a very strong presence. If you look around Asia, there's a lot of landmark projects. Probably one of the largest infrastructure projects ever built, or one of the largest buildings ever built in India, is Delhi Airport. We have the entire contract at Delhi Airport, which really was a fantastic project, but a very difficult project to execute in the environment. But on top of that, we have even locally the current airport terminal that's being expanded in Hong Kong, the MTR projects that are going on in Hong Kong at the moment, and all of the infrastructure that's been put in China. And I think it's sometimes hard for people to understand the amount of metros in just about every city in China. We're talking a huge amount of cities that there's metro lines being installed.
From a personal perspective and as a CEO, how much time do you travel given the size of the company and the number of projects that you're involved in this region?
What's my life like? I think if you're not a person that enjoys travel, you shouldn't do my job. But I think it's a leadership concept for me. We're working in developing countries where governance is growing and improving. I think that for a CEO, it's incumbent on them to travel and to experience what's going on. And if you consider that we have operations in just about every country in Asia Pacific, there's quite a demand on me if really I want to go and experience what's happening in those countries. So I'm on the road a lot, and being a German company, and I'm often asked to be back in Germany for board meetings and so forth, so I'm on the road a lot.
From a business perspective, is Asia the place to be?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think there's no doubt that I would say to any young Australian to, if they really want to have a look at the world at the moment, come to Asia and experience, you know, the growth rates that we see here, the challenges that we see, and I think the experience that anyone can take away. And We hear about the Asian century. I think that for Australia, it is our time to be so closely coupled to Asia. And I think, as I said, for any young Australian, we should be participating in this growth at the moment.
What does your future hold, and will you ever return to Australia?
I think philosophically, I've never thought about where I'm going to be in the future. I think the opportunities as they came, and when the opportunity came to Asia 10 years ago, I took it, and I really don't regret any decision I've made, and I think I just look forward for the next opportunity wherever it'll take me.
Peter Walker, thank you very much for joining the program.
Thank you very much.